How's it going, everybody? My name is Jim, and welcome to Restoration Projects. This is a really cool restoration, as this is the first saw that Delta ever made. So this is the American Boy Scroll Saw, and it was first released in 1923. Little backstory on Delta. Delta was started by a man named Herbert Tautz, who was a German immigrant, and it was incorporated in 1919 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was ran out of his garage. And this was the first mass production saw that he made. Now, mass production, take that term with a little bit of a grain of salt, as we don't know exactly how many of these were made, but this was the first known saw that Delta created, and you can still find these on eBay. Currently, right now, there's two of them sitting on there at the time of the recording of this video, and that's where I bought this one. I think I paid $80 for this saw with shipping and handling on top of that, so which I think is a fair price for one of these, and they're just a really neat piece of history. These things were first introduced as a hand-powered saw, and then they were later introduced with this flywheel here that you see that has the V-groove, so you can hook it up to a motor and have it be a motorized saw. You'll notice there, I'll try to get a better shot of it, but this flywheel has a spot that's a knockout for a hand wheel, and that's the only modification I intend to do to this, is to drill that out, tap it, and then make a wooden handle. I have a chunk of oak that I'm going to turn down on my lathe, and we're going to make a handle for this. That way we can bring back the original glory of this as being a truly hand-powered, hand-operated machine. There's definitely something elegant and beautiful about these old machines from the 20s. The design aspects of them and just the quality that they still hold to this day. You can tell when these things were not only designed and built, they were just all through the manufacturing process. There's a lot of attention to detail, and that shows. There's also the cool factor of this, knowing that this could have been assembled in Herbert Tautz's garage. Back then, it's not unheard of, or probably wasn't even that uncommon, to go to a foundry, give them the patterns that you want your castings made out of, and they would do a batch for you, and then you have that shipped to your house, and you could make your product with it. And that's very well what could have happened with this. Is this could have come from a local forging company, and it was assembled in his garage. This story of Delta is a truly American story. It's an American success story. You gotta think back to the 1919 when this first company started. Here you have a first-generation immigrant who came to this country. We don't know if he even spoke English. I mean, this guy, an immigrant from Germany. And you start a company back then in those conditions, and the attention to detail that your tools had, the first ones that you were producing, it just says something to the grit and the determination of the man who started this. And there's something neat about that. Now, throughout this restoration, most of what you're seeing me do here is just take the rust off of the unpainted portions, and I'm cleaning up the painted portions using just WD-40 and a nylon brush. I'm not using a brass or steel brush or anything because I don't want to damage the paint. We just want to get the raw metal back to the shiny state there, so especially on these supporting rods, the mechanism that goes up and down can travel smoothly. And then right here we have the table, so we're just getting this thing cleaned up. I'm using what's called a stripping wheel, so it's made out of nylon, and it will not damage the metal, it will just remove the paint. When I first started doing restorations, I made the mistake of using a wire wheel and cast iron, so don't repeat my mistakes. Now right here what I am doing is, this is the only modification I'm doing for this. So right underneath the drill chuck there, you see that little round hole, or round spot, and that is where these things are designed to have the hand wheel installed. So it's just there's a little bit more casting there, so there's a little bit more meat and material to be able to support the torque that's to be put on it from a hand wheel. And we're just gently clamping it down. We don't want to break the lip there on the V-groove of that flywheel. And we're just going to drill in our pilot hole right here. And then I'm going to drill it out to the proper size for the tap I'm using. And we're going to tap this. Once I have this hole tapped, I have a bolt that I had laying around that actually worked perfectly for this. I just had to cut in a groove into it, so it's a slotted screw essentially, and we're going to put a wooden handle over that and screw this in, and then we're going to put a retaining nut on the back of it. So everything I just tried to describe there will make sense here in a little bit once we see the final assembly of this. A little bit catching ahead of ourselves here. When it came to the assembly of this, I tried to stay away from oil as much as possible, just because it's going to attract a lot of dust and sawdust, especially because this is a saw. So I used paste wax, and the paste wax that's what's going to protect this thing from just condensation and moisture over the years, because let's be honest, this thing is going to be sitting on my shelf and collecting dust. I mean, it will get used, it will get looked at, looks cool, but let's be honest with ourselves, it's not going to get used very often, and I want to preserve it, and I don't want rust to accumulate on it. So right there you see I have the paste wax. I've waxed all the metal surfaces that are not painted, and now we're just assembling everything. Putting a table on here, and we can see we have our overarm support, so this is the piece that keeps the wood from bouncing up and down. And now we're putting on the flywheel here, and yes, the flywheel does bend in like that. If it looks like it's supposed to bend out, it's not. I looked at the schematics. And here is the arm that holds the blade, and just gonna tighten that down. This blade seems a little short. I might have one size too small, I don't know, but I did have to clamp it down and put quite a bit of pressure on here to get the blade to go into the two grooves for the blade holder. So I just used 2 clamps here, and I just progressively got them tighter and tighter until I was able to set that blade into place. So just leapfrogging there, and here we're about to lock it into place, and then we just loosen one, use the other one to keep it from bouncing and breaking the tabs on that blade, and we're set there. So we're just getting everything lined up and getting ready to square up the blade here. So right there, I'm just using a square, make sure that our cuts are going to be at a perfect 90-degree angle. And there you can see how it operates. When you turn that hand wheel, the table stays stationary, and that whole back arm there assembly rides up and down on a crank. So it looks like a half of a crankshaft out of a car. There is the wooden handle that we made, and we are just giving it a liberal amount of paste wax here to preserve it. And there's the bolt. Same thing, just paste wax, that way it will spin smoothly on it. It screws on in there. We don't want to get too tight, and to keep that bolt from backing out, we're just going to put a nut on the back side there, and that will keep everything in place. So here we are making our first cuts with the saw. Now that's been cleaned up, and this is just a piece of thin plywood, and this thing cuts actually pretty impressively. Pretty neat little saw. So hopefully you guys got something out of this video. If you did, please smash that subscribe button. It helps the channel out. And thank you guys for watching.